Hello and welcome to this video. My name is Benvarmeren and today I will educate you on how to play a dive composition in a competitive League of Legends environment. In this video we'll cover these subjects. What does diving mean and why should my team do this? What are the fundamental parts of a dive composition? How can you build a dive composition and which champions are good in terms of dive potential? How can you set up a dive and a breakdown of a dive? When diving, you essentially want to do the opposite of what a poke composition wants to do. A dive composition likes to get up close and dirty. The idea is to create a composition consisting of strong, tanky, durable tanks with some form of hard crowd control. On top of this, you'll want to look at getting champions with initiation/follow-up abilities in order to get under the tower, do your thing, and then get out. It's very rare that you see a full-blown dive composition, as you don't want to tunnel vision into focusing on one strategy. While it seems easy to play a dive composition has to be ahead and has to be played smartly, or it will be very hard to dive and therefore fulfill the idea of the composition. The likes of a pick or teamfight composition is easier to play because they're fairly broad win conditions. You can play a dive composition if your team are strong in the early game, but they aren't comfortable playing assassins, which means that they prefer playing tanks. In order to create a dive composition, you will want to focus on 5 things when you're drafting: tanks, burst and consistent damage, initiation, crowd control, and follow-up buffs/crowd control. Going under the tower, you'll obviously want to be able to stay under there for as long as possible. While someone like Elise might be able to get out scot-free with her repel, she's not going to be a team player and help her team get out. Therefore, getting durable tanks is the best way to go in order to survive under the turret of your enemy. Examples of durable tanks are present on your screen right now. With burst, you're able to quickly blow up the most important members of the enemy team. This makes your dive easier, as the most dangerous enemies, the backline, have died and therefore cannot deal damage to you. But just because the backline is dead doesn't mean that the fight is over yet. Your aim is to get an ace in order to grab as many objectives as possible. Therefore, aiming on getting consistent damage is also a smart decision, so that you may continue rolling your snowball. Examples of burst and consistent damage will now be present on your screen. Initiation crowd control makes it easier to get onto a target. Having the hard crowd control also means that getting under the tower is way easier, as control of the small area surrounding the tower is in your hands. Being in control equals a fight in your favor. But then, obviously, having buffs that allows for a team to follow up onto the initial crowd control makes it so that you can easier continue the fight under the tower. It also allows for you to do your job faster, whereafter you can then get out of the fray. Follow-up crowd control enhances your ability to keep the enemy locked down until you deem the fight over. Examples of initiation crowd control are Leona's Solar Flare, Amumu's Curse of the Sad Mummy, Hecarim's Onslaught of Shadows, or Malphire's Unstoppable Force, and they are present on your screen right now. Then, examples of follow-up buffs/crowd control are Sivir's On the Hunt, Rumble's Equalizer, Maokai's Nature's Grasp, or Nami's Tidal Wave, which is also present on your screen. Building a dive composition is not a hard task, and obviously I have already mentioned a bunch of different champions that can work as individuals in a dive composition. However, now I would like to walk you through 2 different dive compositions, why they work and what their win conditions are. The composition that is currently on your screen is a good example of a dive composition. To actually dive, you need a tank or 2. In this composition, Leona and Maokai makes up for that, and they also bring a bunch of CC. With Leona's Solar Flare and Maokai's Nature's Grasp, locking enemies down becomes a piece of cake. The cherry on top is the extra utility coming in from both Rumble and Sivir. If a dive turns bad, the movement speed from Sivir on the hunt makes it easy to get out, while Rumble's equalizer slows enemies down. If a dive is good, On the Hunt can be used both defensively and aggressively to get out or to get in, while Rumble's equalizer lays down the red carpet for Annie to place tippers upon and burst the enemy team. But the composition has flaws as well. Leona and Sivir, while being great at level 6, will have a hard time in the laning phase because of Leona's attack range. Melee supports will always suffer because of the lower range, while Sivir is far from the best laning phase to carry. On top of this, Rumble is very dependent on being able to get into lanes, but Annie and Maokai and the bottom lane duo, once they reach level 6, will be able to set up ganks fairly efficiently for Rumble. If the composition are able to get out ahead or even from the laning phase, it should be able to somewhat teamfight, as it has a fair amount of damage from Annie, Sivir and Rumble, but that is obviously dependent on them not being behind post 10 minutes. If this composition falls behind, it'll have a hard time competing in teamfights and dives. The win conditions of this composition are as follows. Play for level 6 because you need your ultimates. Make sure that side lanes are pushing so that you can create pressure on one spot on the map so you may dive, and after a successful dive, which has to be carefully set up, take objectives. If done correctly, you should be able to create a lead. If diving is not a possibility, then try to turtle the game and look for teamfights in the later stages of the game. The second dive composition showcases a symbiosis between dive potential and safety. With Gnar and Orianna, you got the potential to do a Wombo combo under the tower in order to kill the enemies as fast as possible, and you can even throw in Jinx's Super Mega Death Rocket to get even more burst. The cherry on top here is that Jinx has a lot of damage once she reaches a spike of Infinity Edge plus attack speed item. What this composition has that the first composition didn't is reliable safety. While composition 1's only disengaged tools were Sivir's on the Hunt and somewhat Rumble's equalizer, this composition has Gragas' explosive cask, Gnar's Gnar, and Lulu's wild growth to help them disengage. But this composition is also more of a hybrid composition. While it can dive and function as a dive composition, the strength of the Jinx and Orianna in the late mid game and late game means that they can also fight. They even have a front line to play around. You can now see this composition's win conditions on your screen. They have to go even in the laning phase to come out with a deficit around 2000 or 3000, that's the maximum that they can have. They now have to make sure that they control one side lane with Gnar, who is going to be split pushing. They can then set up dives if the team deems it a worthy risk, and if dives cannot be made, they have to play for team fights. When looking to set up a dive, you want to be the one controlling the map. This means that you should first of all make sure that at least one side lane is pushing. When one side lane is pushing, your opponents are forced to send someone out to the side lane to deal with the push. And that is step 1, ladies and gentlemen. When this is done, your team will obviously play with a man advantage, and it will therefore be less risky to dive. While you'll want to have vision control when sieging, vision is less important when looking to dive. I do not recommend careless play, but diving is less reliant on being safe in terms of being flanked and more dependent on having a lead/man advantage. Step 3 is then making sure that your minions are pushing towards their turret while they have no minions to play around with. When your minions are pushing, staying close to a tower is easier, which also allows your team to A. slowly grind down the tower, and B. get in position to get under the tower to dive. But overall, having control of side lanes is the most important thing when setting up a dive. Again, having control of side lanes means that you have control of where your enemies are. In this clip from the 2015 EU LCS Summer Week 1 Day 1 showcasing Fnatic taking on Unicorns of Love, we see Fnatic executing a dive around the 7-minute mark. But why are they able to do so? Well, for starters, we know that you want to have control over the side lanes in order to dive a tower without running an enormous risk. Then, looking at the minimap, we can see that Vardax is freezing the bottom side, which he has been doing for around 3 minutes, and that Power of Evil is getting pushed in by Febiven in the mid lane. With Vardex not pushing in the bottom side, Fnatic are not running a risk at all with them sending 4 people up to the top side. With this knowledge of where Power of Evil and Vardex are, they make up for the lack of vision in the Unicorns jungle, because they now know where everyone are on the map with their vision of the rest of the Unicorns of Love. Fnatic know that there's 2 threats that they have to neutralize in this dive. It's Hylissang and Vizicsacsi. Hylissang is a threat because of his crowd control and his ignite, and Vizicsacsi because of his crowd control. Therefore, these 2 champions are Fnatic's priority targets. Once the dive starts, you can see how they all focus in on Hylissang, who doesn't even get to use his stun. Fnatic do make a mistake of letting Reckless catch the tower aggro, but fortunately, he's able to get out using his summoners. Now, because Vizicsacsi used his twisted advance onto Reckless, Fnatic know that he's harmless. After losing the tower aggro, they can then continue their dive. With Kikis being the lowest member, they instantly kill him, whereafter Vizicsacsi is an easy isolated target. While it wasn't the cleanest of dives, Fnatic realized that they could do it because of their control over the map, their tanky members, and their superb team coordination. Together, that makes this dive a beautiful example of the thought process behind diving. If you have enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like, subscribe, and find me on Twitter. Have an idea about a video I should make? Leave a comment below, and I would like to thank you very much for watching, and I do hope that I'll see you next time.